Here's the mounts I removed. This was the rear mount. It was in pretty good shape. And then here was the driver's side front mount. It was das kaputt. So, not an easy match to get in. The rear one is more of a problem to get the lower bolt out. Right here, it's not very good TV to see it. The upper one is not too bad. This one, both the bolts are very easy to get to. I think you have to pull like one air cleaner tube just loose, and there's no coupler or anything to get over. But getting this into the engine bay area requires a little bit of jostling with your jack and a couple of wood blocks on the oil pan. And eventually you get it to a point where it's kind of lined up. You can spray it with WD-40 and it'll help slip it through. I got mine kind of lined up, and then gave it a couple of little small taps with the dead blow hammer, and it popped right in and just falls right in position. So I've been putting this off for a long time. I've been getting some driveline clunk and thunk, and generally just not real good feeling. Here's the mount, one of the roll restrictor mounts. I replaced that already, but it wasn't really all that bad. And the one that constantly goes bad, a lot of folks, is right here on the top, the roll mount. And I had the round one, and I upgraded to this one, which is the new square design. It seems to work just fine. I put the polyurethane bushings in. I couldn't remember if it was FCP or IDP or IPD. Engine vibration was horrendous, absolutely unacceptable. So that's out, and then to get the upper mount screw in on the front one, all I had to do was pop this one out of position. Everything else is pretty much still there. You have to do some hijinks in the back to give yourself some clearance. To take the rack loose, there's 5 bolts to get the rack loose, not hard to get to. Loosen that, you get a little bit of jostling room. Remove the exhaust mount underneath, and it gives you a little bit more clearance. And I guess I can kind of try to show you here. Again, it's hot air today. Sorry about that. There are 2 bolts or nuts actually on this side, 2 nuts on this side. You can see one poking out right there in the front for the steering rack. And there's the other one sticking out the front. The other one that goes into the frame itself. Not hard to get to. Behind there is an exhaust bracket. It's not too hard to get removed. You might want to get that out because there is a clearance problem getting into the nut on the bottom side of that mount. You'll see that I have a 1/4 inch extension going up through. Yeah, that's about all you can get because the sway bar is pinching off that area up in there, so it's very difficult to get to and it makes a mess. Once you get the underbody cover off, there's quite a bit of room around the turbo and areas underneath. This is Volvo S60 turbo, and not too bad. Previous owner had knocked off the plate underneath and not replaced it. That set up severe corrosion on the cooler lines and the oil lines going into the turbo. Don't do that. Buy the shield, put it back on there, hit everything underneath, exposed surfaces. I use fluid film myself, and then not necessarily on the hot stuff, but on the other lines. It really helps. The power steering lines were corroded off, and you can see right there that is a nickel copper line that I made for the power steering. That's a brake hose or brake line grade, so it's held up just fine for 2 years, no problems. But anyway, if you lose the underbody shield, put it back on. They're not that much money, 50-60 bucks, and they will save you a lot of headaches. All right, so that's kind of what I've been playing with today. It's 92, 94 again in Michigan, hot, and sorry for the fan running in the background, but this is what we've been playing with today. Thanks for watching. Okay, YouTube, I just want to add in just a smaller piece. This is the mount that was really bad. This cable that wraps around it is basically a security element to, if the mount actually tears and breaks, this cable is to keep it from over traveling the engine. Well, in this case, this one is from the other mount, and the one that was supposed to be on this mount was gone. So it was allowed to bounce and thrash as much as it could. Now, for those that are not familiar with these things, these mounts basically are also sometimes called jacuzzi mounts because they are liquid filled, something that won't freeze. You typically, call it antifreeze if you will, and basically uses that to help dampen the function. So as this extends, the fluid has to transfer inside through this little baffle plate and allows it to extend under somewhat of a control. So rather than just stretch, all that, it allows it to expand, but with a little bit of resistance to it. So gives it a good feel, and then these are the better mounts which you'll get nowadays. So anyway, just a quick thought, add onto that one, and thought you might be interested in that. But the cable, it should be there. If it's not, and it's torn like this one, every time you torque up the engine, it's just going bam, bam, bam. So this is the mount that goes near the crankshaft end, as far as the crank pulley. And I want to show you this. You see all the movement inside. That's supposed to be packed with rubber. So this has been bouncing around. A lot of what I was getting is every time I hit a bump, I'd actually get like an additional clunk. Well, I thought it was a suspension, but I'd already changed all that. Shouldn't have been it. Well, what I was getting was this guy. Boom, boom. Clunk, 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 clunk every time. Just like that. Clunk, clunk, clunk. It's supposed to be packed with rubber. This one got oil soaked because of another issue that broke down the rubber, and then here it came. Plus, there's a little bit of old age involved. Thought you might be interested.